Hello MechWarriors! Today we'll be going over June's tournament, Summer of Profit 3152. So the narrative here is that Clan Seafox is holding a number of gladiatorial events based on famous mercenary battles. We'll start with the list building rules and then we'll get into the missions, and then I'll go over the Seafox star that I'm going to be bringing. First point of interest here is that you can take more than 6 units. This is not normally the case. You do pay for your extra units, however, in the form of battle value. I think that 7 units is probably going to be your best option. Going for 8 units costs you 750 battle value, whereas going for 7 only costs you 250. I myself am playing Clan Seafox specifically because they have access to the Triskelion. So pretty standard stuff here. The within 1 rule is in effect. So you can have a 4-3 unit, but not a 4-2 unit or a 5-3 unit. Fraternal Twins rule, so you can bring up to 2 of the same chassis, but they have to be different variants. You can change out your ammo in different missions, so if someone has like ferrolamellar armor, you can bring acid, but you cannot dump your ammo in the lobby. Any immobilized vehicle is considered crippled, so you can take battle mechs, omni-mechs, infantry, battle armor, and ground vehicles. You're limited by your master unit lists, as usual. No VTOLs, no artillery, no command consoles, and no super heavies. Missiles are pretty standard stuff here. Heat seeking is allowed, which is kind of cool. It does cost battle value, but if you're bringing Infernos anyways, you could set up a pretty cool 1-2 combo with that. Pretty standard for autocannon ammo, and you can bring Narc and Einarch as well. Now this is interesting here. We have pulse limit of 30 damage, that's across Inner Sphere and Clan pulse lasers, but ER pulse lasers and re-engineered lasers only count for half of their base damage. And I confirmed if you have, say, an ER medium pulse laser, you divide its damage by 2 and it comes out to 3.5. You're going to round that up unless you can add them together to make a whole number. So if you have 1 ER medium pulse laser, that counts as 4 damage, but if you have 2 ER medium pulse lasers, that only counts as 7 damage. And precision ammo is counted as 8 points of pulse if it's taken in AC 10s, 20s, or Proto-Mech Autocannon 8s. There's some debate whether or not packs can actually take precision ammo, but that's neither here nor there. I don't think it's worth it for one of these anyways, because pulse lasers are just so darn good. But I know there's at least one person that's bringing a whole bunch of AC 20s, and they are bringing some precision ammo with them. So it's something to consider. It's not normally allowed in the MRC. Now, this is big. Normally there's a cheese score associated with stuff, but they straight up just banned jump movement of 7 or more on more than 1 unit. So make sure you're making a good choice on this 7 move point unit. And here's the optional rules that are going to be turned on for the tournament. Careful stand, double blind, ECCM, firing while prone, sensor rules, etc. And I did manage to convince the TO to include initiative streak compensation, so I'm very glad for that. Next we have our missions. Mission 1, Valley of Death. This is a breakthrough, so attacker is going to start here in the bottom of the canyon. Can't start higher than height 1 within 3 hexes of the left side of the board. This was actually my suggestion, and I think that it's going to make it so that the attacker is going to have a little bit of a harder time outmaneuvering the enemy. And it fits with the narrative. They're using the canyon to hide their presence. But out of the sandstorm comes player B, deploying just about in the middle of the map on either side, anywhere they want, in this red box. Blowing sand is in effect. This reduces visual range to 10 hexes, meaning that those brawling weapons are going to be a lot more valuable in this matchup, and Inner Sphere LRMs are going to be pretty bad. It also imposes a +1 to hit on all energy and missile weapons, and wing and ground effect vehicles have a chance of taking damage just all the time, so I wouldn't recommend taking any of those. All of these missions are going to use the standard battle value destroyed for half of the scoring for the match. So ideally you want to accomplish your objective and kill all of the enemy units. But just killing as much battle value as you possibly can is also good. Player A can score up to 50 points by exiting uncrippled or crippled units off the east side of the map. 10 points if they're uncrippled, 5 points if they're crippled. Player B starts with 50 objective points, and they start losing points if the enemy exits their crippled or uncrippled mechs off of the map. So this means that player A is really incentivized to get their units across the map as quickly as possible, without taking too much damage, because every uncrippled mech that you exit is basically a switch up of 20 points. However, if you manage to kill all of the defender's units, anything the attacker has with 3 movement points left just escapes automatically. So you'll automatically get your 10 points if it's not crippled, or 5 if it's crippled. So there's a couple ways that you can go about this. I would probably stay and fight for as long as I can, especially if the fight's going in my favor. As the attacker, I would probably bunch up on one side and scale the cliffs and just book it across the top or across the bottom. The defender is probably going to want to spread their units out a little bit or deploy centrally, and being able to just blitz through whatever defenders they have on one of the sides is what I would probably go for. There's not a lot of cover on this map though, so maybe going through the center and hopping from tree to tree and making use of that cover is going to be worth it. Mech Warriors, let me know how you would tackle this map as attacker and defender in the comments. Mission 2 is Cut Off the Head. You have to hunt down the enemy commander. Now again, this is attacker and defender, but you don't know which side you're going to be on. Every player is going to attack twice and defend twice, but they don't know which mission. So you have to build your list to be able to do attack and defense on all of the scenarios. So player A is the attacker, and they just get points for scenario by destroying the enemy's command unit. They can get up to 50 points by just destroying their command unit. The defender, however, gets points by defending their commander. They get 20 points if their commander is still alive at the end of scenario, and they get +5 victory points for non-command player B units still alive at the end of scenario. So they only get points by keeping their own stuff alive. They do get combat score for destroying enemy units, but player B wants to just keep everyone alive as much as possible. Player A in this scenario better hope that they've brought a lot of very mobile units and that their 7 jump unit is capable of dealing a lot of damage, because I can virtually guarantee you that a lot of people are probably going to bring a highly mobile 7 jump heavy mech as their commander, because player B's command unit is their heaviest mech. However, you can choose if you have the same tonnage on multiple mechs, which one is your commander. If you don't have any mechs, it's your heaviest vehicle, and no one can flee off the map in this scenario unless you're pushed off, and then you're considered as destroyed. Interesting map, lots of places to hide. I could see an argument for like LRM carriers in this mission packet, even though they don't have a lot of mobility and they're probably gonna lose you some points on mission 1 unless you're defender. All of these missions have places to hide, either through the sand or behind hills. Mission 4 has city fight going on, so lots of places to hide there. I think cheap LRM boats to provide fire support might actually be a pretty decent idea, especially if you're bringing like narc or tag units. Mission 3 is really interesting. So a defender deploys up here slightly closer to the objective, which is this building right here with the satellite on it, and the attacker deploys down here in this corner. Their objective is to get next to this building, or within 3 hexes if you have a probe, and scan it by not making any attacks during firing or melee phase that turn. Or you can have infantry enter the building. So the scoring here is pretty complicated, because during testing we found that the defender was at a pretty major disadvantage when the objective was just scan the building. There wasn't really any way for the defender to stop the attacker from just scanning. So attacker gets full points if they have a battle armor or infantry unit enter the building, and then they exit the map. You can only exit from the east or the southern edges. So you can get 40 points as the attacker if you scan the building with a unit and have it exit successfully, or ends the scenario still alive. But only if you also had battle armor or infantry enter the building and have that infantry destroyed. It goes to a 30-10 split if attacker scans the building and exits the map or is still alive when the scenario ends. So no infantry involved in this one. You just have to scan the building and either live 15 turns or exit off the southern or eastern map edge. This is going to be the easiest to pull off. Now, player B starts winning on scenario if all player A does is have battle armor or infantry enter the building and then gets destroyed. This still nets player A quite a few points, so getting battle armor into the building is super important. You can still win this scenario with combat score if all you do is get battle armor into there and then force the enemy to chase it for a few turns. Goes to a 20-40 split if attacker scans the building but is destroyed before the end of scenario. And the only way that the defender can score the full 50 points is if they can completely stop the attacker from scanning the building. I think this is basically impossible. This 20-40 split is probably the best that you can hope for, unless you get like a bunch of lucky leg hits and knock everyone's legs off, or manage a through armor critical on their mobility units. But then again, this is a pretty large amount of terrain that you have to traverse as the attacker. And there's also not a lot of places for the attacker to hide. It's basically just a big hill. You could hide over here in this little pocket with one mech. And turn 1, you might be able to hide a few more units along this ridge behind here, which might be the best way to go, with this super high mountain peak here blocking some line of sight. Then you're gonna have to break out across pretty much open terrain. There's like one forest, and there's a forest over here, I guess. I'm not sure what the best method of attack or defense is here. The defender has a couple of clumps of trees that they can use to hide in. One here, and one here that have good vantage points. This river is also kind of a problem for ground-bound units. I think it's ice, so you want to run across here, which makes you kind of predictable. Again, let me know your thoughts for all of these missions in the comments. And leave a like while you're down there if you don't mind. Really helps out the channel. A few caveats for this one quickly. You can't shoot the building. It's a valuable building that needs to be scanned and searched. You can't destroy it. And infantry and battle armor can't be on top of the building. They have to be inside of it. Now, defender can also flee with their units, and if you retreat and actually get off of the map with them, whatever battle value they had left over is not considered destroyed, so you can deny your enemy some battle value score. Finally, we have mission 4, which is also a breakthrough scenario, but this time it's in a city with moderate rainfall. So pretty much this entire map is going to be just covered in mud, which is really bad news for vehicles, especially wheeled vehicles. Hovers are going to be just fine though. I used a 3 piloting hover tank in this map and it worked wonders. It was fantastic. So again, this is breakthrough. Attacker starts over here, defender on this side, and the attacker has to exit through one of these 5 hexes here. And in order to exit any hex, they have to destroy part of this building. This is a building with 120 health. So each part of it has 120 health. Essentially, you have to batter down the gates and then escape. I think the best way to go about this as attacker is just stand up fight and try to kill your enemy. If you can just kill everyone, you count as escaping with whatever you have left. And it's actually pretty easy to hide as long as you have some mobility, especially if you've got jump jets. Just keep hopping between buildings. They'll never find you. Scoring is the same as mission 1. Now, some notes about the map. So these 3 buildings here, these 3 little buildings here, and then these 2 towers are all height 1. Almost everything else is height 2, except all of these large buildings on the east side are height 3. So the defender can actually hide behind these buildings over here, and the attacker has to come and get them. Defender can move out from their defensive position and try and take the center of the map. This position right here is extremely important. Being in a forest on a one high hill means that you can see over a lot of the buildings. So this is pretty much the sniper perch in the entire map. Other than maybe this building here, you could stand on top of this or stand on one of these buildings, but then you're going to get the building shot out from under you, which might actually not be a bad plan. You could use a really heavy assault mech like a Highlander or something to jump on top of this and use its weight to collapse the building. I might have to try that. Of course, you're going to take some major fall damage in return. One difference here between mission 1 and this one is that the defender cannot flee. So you can't deny your opponent's scenario points by running away. And this is the list that I am probably going to be bringing. Exactly 10,000 battle value Clan C Fox Star. We've got a Gargoyle J, super jumpy fast unit, 587, over 200 armor, has a blistering array of small weapons that it will just destroy people with. This thing is super nasty. This is my commander, really hard to pin down, very hard to kill, really dangerous if you try and go after him by yourself with your mobility unit. I think this is probably the best command unit in this packet. It's available to the Inner Sphere mercs as well. I haven't looked at all of the mulls, but this one is available in later eras for mercenaries. Now, the Triskelion is really weird. This is a tripod mech. As you can see, it has a right leg, left leg, and a center leg. So this thing is pretty expensive, but it's a decent support unit. It has 2 LRM-15s with Artemis 5, so that's -1 to hit, +3 cluster. Case 2 in both torsos. It has a targeting computer and ECM, so it can defend itself against enemy Artemis. nearly maxed armor, so 30 armor on all 3 of the legs means that this thing is extremely hard to knock down. I'll do a video covering how tripod mechs are different from bipod and quad mechs later this weekend. Stay tuned for that. Good armor on the torsos and the arms, 35 on the center torso, nothing to complain about here. This thing comes with some pretty unique benefits, and it's just a nasty 5'8" heavy cavalry mech. Just going back to the gargoyle for a second, you can see this thing is super well armored. 24 on both the legs and the torsos, 30 on the CT. The gargoyle ain't going down without a fight, baby. It's got 32 sinking, so it can fire a lot of its weapons without overheating, especially because those improved jump jets only produce 3 heat. The Huntsman E, 585 little cavalry mech, 50 tons, pretty decent armor overall, 2 medium pulses, a large pulse, and an ATM-6 are its main battery of weapons. Importantly, it has a probe, so this will, I'm hoping, help me find people in the sandstorm and in city fight so I can track down hidden units or see them coming. Overall, this is just a great little skirmisher with decent mobility. Then we've got ourselves the Gladiator 5R. Light engine. XL gyro means that it's pretty likely to take a gyro crit if the CT gets opened up, which is not ideal, but this thing is pretty cheap. I'm taking it at 3-4 so that I can keep these weapons pretty accurate. 466 and 26 sinking means that it can jump and alpha strike everything every single turn. No overheating issues at all. This is the main reason that I'm taking it. I want to keep the Triskelions Artemis 5 active, so having a tough brawler mech like this staying on top of people with ECCM up is really important for my overall damage output. It also has Artemis itself, so it's also buffing its own damage. This is the slowest member of the star, but it's pretty tough and mobile still. A lot of the mobility requirements of this map are being able to jump. Mud slows you down, there's lots of cliffs everywhere, there's buildings in the way. Jump jets, I think, are super important for this event. Lastly, we have a little unit of Sylph battle armor. So these things can fly up in the air, like VTOLs, so they're going to be able to scout the city fight map for me pretty effectively. They have 5 movement, so an effective 4 TMM, which is pretty nice. They're pretty squishy. An inner sphere medium pulse laser will kill them, but they put out some pretty serious damage. 25 damage if everything hits in little clusters, so these are basically carrying some really deadly SRMs. I'm going to be loading them onto the gargoyle, having him get next to that satellite on mission 3 and having them hop in, and then they're either going to climb back on the gargoyle depending on what the situation's like, or they might just hang out in the building the entire match and just wait there and not die so that I can get a good amount of points. Or they might break out and try and escape off of the map turn like 10 or something and just fly away after I've dealt with most of the enemy units. One thing I wanted to mention quickly is that you should be setting your sensors during deployment depending upon the map. So if you've got a probe, you want to be using it. If you don't have a probe, you want to be using MagScan. MagScan scans for metallic units. It's great in forests, it's great in open terrain, it works better than mech radar. If you're doing city fight, you want infrared. Infrared can see through buildings, it just reduces the visual range a lot. If you know that your enemy is pretty close by, you can go for seismic sensors. These only work at super close range, but if there's like 2 buildings in the way, you might not be able to use infrared, and seismic will pick them up if they're like 2 hexes away most of the time. And I'll also just mention that ECM is really important. Keep that ECM up so that enemy scanners aren't going to be able to pick you up as easily. Make sure that you keep all of your units in that ECM bubble, otherwise they'll be able to detect you more easily. So let me know what you think, Mech Warriors. I'd love to hear your thoughts about my list and about the tournament itself. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Really helps out the channel. And join the MRC. Link is in the description. The deadline for submitting lists is the 27th of May. So come and join us this weekend and bounce some ideas off of us. We'd love to help you make a great mercenary list. Stay safe out there, Mech Warriors, and have a great day.